a cold October morning in 1953, Gregory Greenlees, a 6-year-old boy, was enjoying his time in the quiet garden of their home in the American city of Philadelphia. The family lived a simple life, and the child felt safe in his small world. But in an instant, a terrifying moment shattered the peace of this boy's life. 2 unknown men abducted him in broad daylight. The family was in shock, and the street, once filled with life, turned into a dark place covered in shadows. Thus began a new journey of suffering filled with the unknown. Gregory was the innocent child who knew nothing of the world of crime. He felt at ease at home, with his mother who cared for every detail of his daily life, and his father who worked hard to provide a good life for his family. The children in his neighborhood loved him, sharing games and laughter with him. His family lived in an atmosphere of security and peace. But no one could have imagined that this innocence would be taken away, and that the fate of this child would become part of one of the most complicated cases in the city's history. The 2 men who kidnapped Gregory were more than just ordinary criminals. They had a long history in the world of crime, but they had meticulously planned this horrific act. They knew well that Gregory came from a relatively wealthy family, and they believed that the large ransom they could demand for his release would be the start of their financial future. They exploited the complete innocence of this child, using him as a tool to achieve their dark goal. After kidnapping him, Gregory was held in a remote location, far from sight. The family searched for him, but they had no idea where he could be. His hands and eyes were bound as the criminals isolated the child from the outside world, denying him any contact with anyone. The boy cried and tried to escape, but the criminals were relentless. In those difficult moments, Gregory did not understand what was happening around him, but his heart felt deep fear. The moment Gregory disappeared was a devastating shock. When his mother discovered his absence, her heart raced with deep worry. She rushed into the streets, searching for him, and the neighbors came to help, but the atmosphere was dark and information was scarce. The father, who returned home later, could not believe what had happened. There was chaos, and they didn't know where to begin searching. In the heart of a small city, fear began to seep into everyone. The police had no initial clues as to where Gregory might be. They immediately began their investigation, searching the streets and alleys near the house. The criminals had prepared a well-crafted plan to hide, which made the police's task more difficult. Pressure mounted on the investigators, and their determination to find the child grew. News quickly spread through the media, and images of Gregory were posted everywhere. The media hastened to cover the case widely, increasing the pressure on both the police and the family. Newspapers published daily reports about the kidnapping and circulated the details of the ransom allegedly demanded by the criminals. Some stories were distorted, causing suspicions to escalate, and the case became the talk of the town. The family, hoping to find Gregory alive, was trapped between confused hope and haunting nightmares of anxiety and tension. In a mysterious phone call, the criminals demanded a large sum of money in exchange for Gregory's release. They set a date and place for the exchange, which gave the Greenlees family hope. But the police were on high alert, monitoring every move. However, no one knew whether the criminals would adhere to their agreement. The threads of deception and mystery began to intertwine, but the hope for Gregory's return remained on the edge of life and death. New information surfaced, suggesting that one of the criminals had connections with someone in the city who knew about Gregory and his family. But this information was not enough to solve the case, and the investigation moved slowly. Everyone wondered if the case would remain unsolved forever, or if the truth would finally emerge. The family felt that time was running out, and the fate of their child was fading with each passing day. In the end, after several attempts by the police to negotiate with the criminals, the ransom exchange ended in failure. When the decisive moment arrived, the police were watching closely, but the criminals vanished quickly. They could not retrieve Gregory, and the shock was even greater when they realized that the criminals had manipulated the family and everyone who thought they were close to the truth. The ransom, which had been the last hope, led to nothing but more pain. After the failure of the ransom exchange, the criminals began attempting to flee from pursuit, but the police were closing in on them. In the following days, intense search operations took place in various locations, and investigators discovered some evidence that might indicate where the criminals were hiding. But the criminals, with their desperate courage, always stayed one step ahead, planning their escape from sight. Suddenly, after weeks of searching, the police found Gregory's body in a remote area outside the city. The shock was immense. This was not the outcome everyone had hoped, for it was the nightmare that had become reality. The boy's body was found in a desolate area, with no sign that there had been any hope of him surviving. The world had lost an innocent child, and the criminals were still far from justice. With the discovery of the body, the investigation escalated significantly. The police began to focus on the main suspects in the crime, revisiting the evidence that had been gathered earlier. It was clear that the criminals had personal motives in addition to money. Every new lead brought the police closer to solving the case, but the mystery surrounded every detail, making every step of the investigation crucial. After weeks of continuous investigations, the police managed to locate the criminals and arrest them. With their arrests, the criminals began to confess to their crime, revealing the details of the horrifying abduction. The truth was harsh and shocking. The criminals had been seeking revenge on the family due to old grievances, and the kidnapping was not solely motivated by money. In the end, the criminals were put on trial and sentenced to long prison terms. But the Greenlees family found no solace in justice. They had lost Gregory forever, and nothing could bring back time. Despite everything, the case was closed, but the wound it left was deep in everyone's heart. In the end, the echo of Gregory's voice remained in everyone's memory, as though he had never left. Source of the true story: the kidnapping case of Gregory Greenlees occurred in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in 1953, and the case was officially closed in 1954 after the arrest of the criminals.